Well, everybody, thank you for joining us for the Holganix series of webinars. Today, we're gonna be talking to a couple of our farmers that have been using Holganix for a number of years and see what they're seeing in their parts of the country, and maybe through their experience, you all can learn how that Holganix may help you on your operation. Our vision at Holganix is to help revolutionize the way the world grows. We want to help be partners to our farmer customers uh, to help drive soil health. So we see ourselves as partners in the journey towards driving soil health, which is a never-ending, kind of quest to continue to make soil better and more functional and healthier with our customers. And we hope to be a key tool in helping our customers do that. And we do that through the key mechanism is our different microbial products that add life back to the soil, drive life in the soil at different microbial levels. We use bacteria, fungi, amoeba, protozoa, broad consortiums of microbes to fundamentally change the functionality of the soil, improve nutrient cycling, improve bulk density, water retention, improve CEC and organic matter, improve the soil's ability to sequester and hold carbon, improve the plant degradation on a post harvest, so that we can move towards no till or minimum till. So all those things are ways that we help our farmers to drive soil health. We also have a series of tools that we use to help measure the results that we're getting on soil health, and help farmers see the benefits that they're getting from by adding life back to their soil, and then from those tools make decisions to potentially reduce their fertilizer inputs, and other things that they can use to manage their operation. So today we've got myself, Barrett Ursick. I'm founder CEO of Holganix. We've got John Nelson here. John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm John Nelson from Lake Preston, South Dakota, East Central South Dakota.
Great. And John, your operation there, what are you growing? How long you been doing it? How many generations have your family been on the ground?
Yeah, so the farm where I'm on is my grandfather immigrated from Norway, so I'm, however you want to count it, second or third generation from that. We are mainly corn and bean rotation, some spring and winter wheat put in, and I've been farming for 40 plus years now, and this has been learning about biology and the effects on the soil has just been a really interesting journey for me and my son, and we it's been really good. So
Cool. Well, thanks for being here, John. And how many years have you been using Holganix, John? Just
this will be 25 will be my sixth year
okay.
using organics. Yep.
Great. Well,
And,
thanks
yep.
for that. Thanks for that long-standing business you've been giving us. Tim Barlick, you want to introduce yourself? Where you from? What do you grow? How long you been on that ground?
Yeah, I'm Tim Barlick. I'm southwest edge of Nebraska, northeast edge of Colorado. What was originally called by Lewis and Clark, I think they called it the Great American Desert. And we definitely fight that. But I farm about 1,000 acres of corn, edible beans, a little bit of soybeans, winter wheat, and some forage crops, oats and cane, alfalfa, a little bit of everything. Been farming for 10 years now, and been using Holganix for this will be my fifth year. Cut my fertilizer plan is 50% this year. We did it 40 last year. We'll try 50% this year. So might take a break at 50% for a couple of years, make sure my soil's a little healthier yet, but heck, it keeps going and yielding. So why am I going to argue with that? I don't like paying that fertilizer bill. So feels better at this half price compared to where it was before.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your business, Tim, and thanks for sharing that. And by the way, we're going to have some detailed insights on how both these gentlemen have used Holganix, what they've seen in their operations. We're going to do 35, 45 minutes of overview, and then we'll open it up to questions at the end. So if you do have questions, by all means, type them in the chat bar, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar and do the best we can to answer the questions you have. And so with that, we'll kind of get started. Ritu wants to take us to the next slide. So this is just a provocative question that I like to reflect on, and I don't know that this is actually absolutely accurate, but certainly we can. If you read this, it says how many seasons are left in our soil, and according to the UN, they say that potentially we have only 60 seasons left of our topsoil at the way that it's each year we have less and less of it. That's probably an aggressive claim in order to get people's attentions, but I do see it as a provocative statement. But I think we can all agree that, what we've done in agriculture for the last, 40 to 60 years in order to push yield, we've certainly gotten a lot of gains, but we've also done that frequently at the expense of soil health. And anytime I go onto an operation, I always ask, the farmer, where's your best ground? They tell me it's the fence line. Well, fence line is your best ground because that's where we haven't screwed it up. And so what we're trying to do is use microbes and broad consortium of microbes, bacteria, fungi, amoeba, protozoa, to add life back to the soil, so that we can start to get that soil functioning at a level that looks more like your fence line than the stuff you've been putting through a lot of production and the consequences of that. So with that, let's go to the next slide, over2. We love to think about legacy with our customers. A lot of our customers are multi-generational farmers, and certainly there's a concern that, how can I leave the farm in a condition that's better than I inherited it? And I think a lot of people can look at the farm they've inherited and believe that it's maybe not as in a good condition as it was when their grandfather farmed. Again, because of everything we've done to push yield at the expense of potentially soil health. And so how can we leave our land in a way that our children, have better opportunities than we had? And if we can do that, then I think we've done our job as stewards of that land while we've had it. And maybe Holganix can be a tool to help you do that. We hope it can. So soil is alive. It's a living, breathing organism. It's a collection of living, breathing organisms that come together and work in a functional way to help feed plants and do what we need to do. But just like any other, set of organisms, and it needs care, it needs attention, and I think we've done a lot to take care of the plants, but we haven't. We are a soil health company, and we want to drive that life back in the soil. And these fun little statistic up here. Did you know that 40% of all living life on the planet exists below the ground? So all organisms in the sky, roaming around the forests, 40 below the ground. So what is below our feet is teeming with life. And our vision is to make sure it's the right life that can give us the right productivity on our farms, and do in a way that it can help our farmers make more money and have a better legacy for their kids. So Holganix fundamentally are the Holganix technology. We have different microbial products. So Holganix is the company. Sometimes we get overly simplistic and we say Holganix is the product, but the product, we have a series of products under the Holganix brand. The core technology is called Bio 800 Plus. When we say Bio 800 Plus, what that means is that we are one of the only microbial companies we know of that use this broad consortium approach. So we use over 800 species of bacteria, fungi, amoeba, protozoa, all the things that you find in really high functioning soil. We bring out and put it into the soil, along with food sources for that biology. So we bring the biology out and we feed the biology. So as we put it down on the ground, it first of all, it exists now where it didn't maybe exist before, but it also has the ability to grow, multiply, and become more abundant as it's in the soil because of the food sources that we apply with the microbes. There's a lot of microbial products out there. It's becoming very popular, different kinds of microbial technologies that lots of different ag tech companies are using to help do everything from plant protection to helping to improve nutrient uptake and other things. But if you look at the basic product, the basic mechanisms that these other microbial companies are doing, you can see the difference in Holganix by just asking one simple question: how many species of microbes do they have in their product? And typically, you're going to find it's a couple of species, Maybe it's 5 or 6. It could be 12. It's rarely more than 12, and it's usually less than 10. And they're almost always spore-forming bacillus. So it's a bacteria. It's easy to stabilize. They can be in a bottle sitting on a shelf for a year. Most companies are sourcing from the same, essentially 26 families of spore-forming bacillus, and they just do them in different combinations and different concentrations. Doesn't mean they don't do a good job, but they're going to do a limited job because you can only get so much benefit from a specific set of microbes. And what we do is this broad consortium approach where we're actually fundamentally driving soil health. We're not trying to do a specific job. We're trying to fundamentally add life to the soil. And it's the way this life interacts with each other, interacts with the soil, interacts with the fertilizers you put down that gives us, and the plants, that gives us such great benefit and really helps us stand apart from other companies. Benefits are we significantly improve the fertilizer you put down, the uptake of that fertilizer. So you need less fertilizer. We improve plant health overall. We can measure it, we can see it, we can feel it. We improve yield, all while building soil health. And we also help to boost carbon sequestration, which now we're starting to get farmers paid for that. So in all those ways, it helps your operation, should help make you more money, should help your operation be more productive. So, we like to talk about the modes of action of Bio 800, and there's multiple modes of action. Because we're using over 800 species, there's a lot of things happening all at the same time, and the way these species, work together, we get lots of different benefits. But again, just to be broad, and we just kind of went through these, but this is just another slide to kind of reiterate it, which is that, we help improve yield. And how do we do that? We do it by really fundamentally driving root growth. And we also have a bunch of beneficial fungi that go out through the soil like spider webs, and they attach to the roots of the plant. They become an extension of those roots, and we can improve the roots' ability to explore the soil up to 400 times more by having the association with these fungal networks that we help to build and go deep in the soil. Those fungal networks are also the same networks that are helping pull carbon and go deep in the soil, which we'll talk about in a bit. At the end of the day, we end up getting healthier plants that can pull more water nutrients out of the soil, and we get better yield and better quality. We also improve water holding capacity, and out where Tim is, we'll hear some of that when we get to his specific examples. When we improve organic matter, we improve bulk density, we improve the soil's ability to retain water. In fact, if we can move organic matter by 1 percentage point, which frequently we do in the course of a couple of years of using Holganix, we'll see organic matter go from 3 to 4, or from 4 to 5, or what have you. 1 point of organic matter will add 20,000 gallons of water holding capacity for that soil. So it's a pretty direct relationship, and it's important for the plant and for the soil. Fertilizer efficiency, fertilizer continues to be volatile and seems to go up and doesn't come down nearly as quickly as it goes up. And so if we can help you reduce your fertilizer, make more of that fertilizer go to the plant, less of it volatilize in the atmosphere or run off into our ditches, or get tied up in a form the plant can't use, we can help you use more of the fertilizer. We can help you be more efficient with your operation, help put money back in your pocket. And then we've got this idea of carbon. So plants normally under photosynthesis take CO2 out of the atmosphere. They split the CO2 into oxygen that goes back into the atmosphere. That's good. And then carbon that goes into the soil. Under a normal operation, farming operation, the carbon may sit there in that 5 to 8 inch layer of soil, and we come and do some tillage, and a lot of that carbon gets respired back into the atmosphere, and we haven't really done anything for carbon sequestration. Some operations, maybe we're getting a half a ton of carbon sequestration per acre if you're good. With Holganix, because we've got these fungal networks, again, that attach to the roots, go deep into the soil. These fungal networks, we found them down 6 and 8 feet in the soil. The carbon actually goes into the plant, and instead of going in that first 5 or 6 inches, it gets transferred into these fungal networks and goes deep, deep, deep in the soil. So we're finding significant amounts of carbon down 18 and 36 inches where there previously didn't used to be any carbon. And that's good for the soil. Carbon's good for soil health. But it's also good because under certain programs, we can validate that carbon. And as it goes down deep in the soil, they consider it to be semi-permanent. And we can do what's called minting carbon credits, and we can help our farmers get paid for that. And so we started doing that in 24, and um, and 25 is going to be a really significant year for our carbon program, and we're going to continue to build that. That because it's a very measurement intensive program. It's not available in all geographies yet, but we're rolling it out as we get kind of get more acres underway. We will continue to add new geographies. So you can inquire at the end of this. We'll give you a slide where you can hit a QR code and talk to one of our reps to see if it's available in your market. With that, let's get to the grower interviews, and enough me talking. Let's hear how our growers are using Holganix out in their field. So let's start off with John. John, this slide here, can you take us through some of the stats you see here and some of your experience?
Yep. So 6 years ago, when I first heard the Holganix story, what really drew me to it was the diversity that Barrett talked about. And as we got into it the second year, we started seeing that we could reduce nutrients. And then we also moved to no-till after that first year. And over 2 years, we converted to no-till. So we've been able to reduce our nitrogen here, like you can see. So those pounds we're raising, say, 200 bushel corn. So we're in that 0.55 area, typically per unit of corn on nitrogen. Our area is we have pretty good potassium and phosphorus, especially if you have access to some manure. We have a feedlot. So we found that, our phosphorus is tied up with the calcium, and this biology, being as diverse as it is, it affects that bond between the phosphorus and that calcium. So in my tissue samples, I seen my phosphorus levels. Even though some of my soils are really high in phosphorus, I didn't have adequate phosphorus in my plants because it was tied up. And we're finding that it's breaking that bond. The biology is doing that. So we've significantly cut back our phosphorus. All I use is a little bit in pop-up starter on corn. I don't use any on soybeans. And so that's been our journey. We're continuing to look at how we can continue to reduce fertility and possibly just do some foliar feeding. But we're letting the biology do the work. Our soils have significantly changed in the last 6 years. Organic matters have risen conservatively across the farm, 1%, maybe 1.5%. I actually have some organic matters that are starting to tip at 6%. And so, like Barrett talked, when we're dry, that water holding capacity is a big deal. So
That's exciting, John. So, as you've seen this impact on the operation, we've had challenges with, through that time you've been using this, we had, big fertilizer price spikes. We had, good commodity pricing there for a bit, and now it's really come down quite a bit. Has this been a tool that's helped you, stay profitable in the operation?
No, absolutely. When we can cut inputs and maintain yields, and in some cases, like on soybeans, my yields have gone up on average about 10 bushel the acre. So, and that just goes right to the return, right to the ROI. So.
Yeah. Now I go back 1 second there, Ritu. We've got the fuel savings. Have you measured any of that, John?
I haven't, but obviously, so when we decided to go no-till, we sold our tillage equipment, no going back. And I still have the big horse sitting out there, but every day if you're out on that chisel plow, you're putting 200 plus gallons of fuel into that machine. And in the fall of the year and the spring of the year, it's not so bad when you're pulling a big field cultivator or something. But for me to put an exact dollar amount, I haven't yet, but it's an obvious savings.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know one of our growers had mentioned, and this is anecdotal, so everybody's gonna have their own experience. But one of our growers mentioned he believed he was saving $9 or not 9 gallons an acre in fuel between doing less tillage. He didn't go no till. He was doing just a light till. But also the fact that we've opened up the soil to improve the bulk density. It's
Yep.
easier to plant. It's easier to do his light till. So he just doesn't have the resistance in the ground, and he thought that was a significant savings.
Absolutely.
So go to the next slide then, Rico. So tell us about what you've seen in our products, and some of the measurements that we've done with you, and our ability to come out and help you with some tools to really see the results.
Sure. So like you mentioned, bulk densities, measuring that have decreased using the Chrysolab probe. Our biology levels. So we've been testing those. Typically, our soils are in that 0.3 fungal to bacteria ratio at the beginning, meaning there's a lot less fungi than bacteria. This year, when we did the testing, some of those samples were coming back 1-to-1 now. I even seen one that was 1.3-to-1.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so by not disturbing that soil, letting that fungi go to work and build out those hairs and those roots like you were talking about, it's just been phenomenal. The soil has a term that long till no tillers will use, and this is after 15, 20 years of doing this. They talk about their soil looking like chocolate cake, where it crumbles in your hand in the spring of the year, just like a piece of chocolate cake would. And after 6 years, the spring of the year, my soil last spring, or after 5 years last spring, was starting to look like that already. When we did our soil tour in September, I don't think we ever dug any soil without a worm in it. And that's in September. And, spring of the year is different, but in the summer and the fall, and you still have worms there. That's just all part of that soil health journey. So.
Oh, that's super. That's so good to hear. Yeah, so one of the things we do, which John's kind of referencing, in the geographies where we can support this, which is most of the Midwest, we come out and do measurements with our farmers. So we use the Chrysolabs probe, which is a real-time soil test that we do. We get immediate results, give right to your tailgate. We have 26 different measurements that we can pull from the Chrysolabs probe. Tells us everything from bulk density to nutrient availability to pH to CEC. We also do a microbiometer test, which tells us that fungi to bacterial ratios. Typically, when we start off on a farm, we'll see the fungal bacterial ratio. It'll be 90 or 95% bacteria and 5 to 10% fungi. After we get on the program for a year, we'll see that number pretty quickly move to like a 70-30, 70 bacteria, 30 fungi. So improving significantly. And then you heard John, saying we're getting to 1-to-1, which is where healthy soil needs to be. So the longer it's a flywheel approach, the more you use Holganix products, the better and better it's going to get. And so you've heard John's experience over 45, 6 years. It gets better and better, but we see results year one that help that soil start to really, really come alive and be functional. It'll pay for itself in the first year, and it'll continue to pay for itself, years 2, 3, 4. Incidentally, we have two different ways that in row crop that we use Holganix products. One is we've got the Bio 800 that we use in the springtime. We call it Bio 800 Ag, and that's designed for the microbes, and that are designed for germination, root development, fertilizer efficiency, that early, everything you need when that plant's early and young, and we want to get it going fast. Also driving soil health. And then the fall applied product is called Bio 800 Breakdown. It's a different ratio of microbes, but we still use that Bio 800 technology. So it's that large consortium, but we elevate the degraders in the fall. So we're going to help really break down that stubble and stover and release the nutrients that are tied up in that trash that's left over after harvest, and help help it break down and get back into the soil in the form of humus and organic matter, and make it so that we don't need to till as much. Maybe we can move towards no till because we can let the microbes do their job. So two different ways to apply it. We heard John talking about the benefits of both, but I just wanted to just kind of clarify that. So, Tim, let's go to some of your experience on the operation there. Much different ground than John. Yeah, tell us a little bit about where you started. Tell us about some of your worst ground and how you saw things come alive.
Well, John, you kind of got me depressed there when you said 6% organic matter.
Yeah.
My first field I tried this on was 0.6% organic matter. Um, which, if you want to talk about making a difference, it made a difference. That's my, what do you want to say? My poster child field was zero point 0.6 organic matter sand. It was pasture, never should have been taken out of native pasture ground, but out here, if you farm, that's it. So you're gonna put a pivot on it. Um, with the Holganix, let's see, I guess starting out when I was 2019, I put Holganix out kind of as a test with a bunch of other organic material, fertilizers, I should say. I was trying to go organic, thinking we're a small farm, maybe that's how I can make some money. And this one was the one that shined above everything else to say, wow, okay, that one made a difference. Um, and I tried, I think, six different companies' products, and this one was noticeably, 5, 6 inches at third leaf difference for the growth above ground, and below ground was as much, if not more. So it's like, all right, we got to try this on a field. My sandy field that was 0.6% organic matter, put this on a half a field, and that field normally averaged 130. The east half is horrible. The west half, it hit 200. Maybe the monitor would hit 220 a couple times. That year, I saw it hit over 300 8 times, and had to recalibrate the monitor because I didn't believe it. But the semis leaving the field was definitely pretty close to that. Now that I've been putting it on that field, particularly, this will be the fifth year, but um, 23, I've gone from, yeah, in 2023, I've gone from 130 bushels to 167 bushels an acre on that field and reduced my fertilizer by 40%. Um, you know, you want to talk about water holding capacity. The Crystal Labs probe put my organic matter here at 2.2 and 2.4, I think. So huge, whatever that is, 1.5 bump up on my organic matter, and I can see it across the field. I should have sent you a picture of what I had last year when we I try to do a strip every year. I hate it because I know I'm losing so much yield where I leave out the organics on a strip, but noticeable difference. I mean, without it, it's about 3 inches, and with Holganix is about 6 inches, and that was, second leaf. And all the way through the field, it's just, man, why do I keep putting this test one out here to prove it? But uh yeah, I have to keep doing that. But no, the Holganix, like I said, my yields keep going up every year I put it on. I keep cutting my fertilizer, and my yields are going up or staying the same. Um, yeah, I wish I had 6% organic matter. I will say my bacteria to fungi ratio was zero point 0.9 or 95 to on the bacteria side and 5% fungi. I'm getting closer to that 70/30 now. So I can't wait to see if I can get myself to a 50/50 ratio. It would just be awesome on what we could do. But I'm not 100% no-till. I finally convinced Dad to at least park the disc here a few years ago. So we're only strip till, but I've got a feeling it's going to be a few more years before I convince him to go no-till on it. But he's the landlord. It's kind of tough to pull him away. Old habits from 50, 60 years of farming die hard, but he is seeing it. It's slowly coming around, but it's definitely been amazing to see what happens with this Holganix. One simple product that I put in furrow made such a huge difference on our farm.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tim. I really appreciate those results. And to hear you go from point 0.6 to, two and change, or did I hear you say three, or was it two and change?
Yeah, 2.2 to 2.4.
Yeah,
So
2.2, which is significant movement on that ground that was just sand.
Yeah.
And think about, you put down fertilizer on sand, it doesn't stay put, it just washes right through.
Yeah.
And now we've got some actual organic matter there to help hold on to that fertilizer. That's one of the reasons it's so much more efficient, but it's also the microbes are helping, cycle those nutrients. So we got a lot working for you. And think about, 30,000 gallons an acre of additional water holding capacity. Um, so now when you get rain, you get quite a bit more of it, going to that plant and surviving through those tough times.
Yeah, we definitely don't have a lot of rain that comes, or when we do, we get 4 inches in one night, and watching it go downstream for everybody else is kind of depressing, but watching it soak in my field is just like, all right, we'll be all right. So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. Let's go to the next slide, Ritu. So I thought there's another slide for you, Tim, but can you talk about like your experience with having the Holganix team come out and do the measurements and how that happens and talk a little bit about your interaction with the team when they're out there in the field with you, whether that's Dave Stark or some of the other guys that are just out there in the field.
yeah, no, we did a crop tour, soil sampling tour in June, and we had a lot of fun doing that. Kind of a blitz trying to catch multiple guys getting samples, and like you said, the bacteria to fungi ratio was constantly a 90-10, 90-10, 95-5. And one application, a lot of guys were already moving to a 75, maybe an 80, an 80-20 ratio there. And you could see it, the edible beans, the leaf size is twice as big in one application compared to the stuff that they didn't do on the other half of the field, or however you want to say it. But having Nathan and Brian come out, um, Maddie came out, and that was just handy having them all out. But being able to hear from more perspectives, more guys as far as seeing it across the country, what this soil sampling can do, and as proof of, okay, yeah, maybe it looks good, but at the end of the year, maybe the yield didn't jump up like my one field did, but I've got other fields that, well, okay, it went up 5 bushels. But when you can see the numbers on the data, that really helps going, okay, we're still doing something, we're still in the right direction, keep doing it.
Yeah,
And my gosh, when I can cut $100 an acre off my fertilizer bill, I don't care what happens. I'm going to keep buying this stuff. So
yeah, it's money in your pocket.
your turn, right?
So yeah, we like to say, we call it a journey. Being a Holganix, customer, we see it as a journey. You've heard these guys talk about their, 5, 6 years of using product and the benefits they get over time. We get benefit every year. We help put money back in the farmer's pocket, year one, year two, year three, year four. But also, soil health doesn't happen with a single application. Soil health gets driven over time. And so we like to say it's like a flywheel approach. The more times we can get out there and use Holganix products and our consortiums of microbes, the more energy we're going to put in that flywheel. And it's going to get better and better and better over time. That's why we call it a journey. And at the same time, conventional commercial farming is going to continue to put some friction on that flywheel. So it's, and that's okay. I mean, it's just what we have to do to have high production farms is we're always going to do some things that are going to add friction to the microbial life and the soil health. So our job is to continue to add and continue to add so that we're taking at least 2 steps forward, even if we have to take 1 step backward. We continue to gain and create momentum, and that goes to that legacy of handing the farm down in a better situation than we inherited it. And we try to help you really see the benefits by our teams of people that work with us, our agronomists that are Holganix employees. They come out and they do a lot of these measurements with you for you to help prove the results, so you have the confidence and help make you, it also help you make better decisions on your operation. And that data will be yours year over year over year, and we don't charge you for that. That's something we do as part of our partnership with you to help drive soil health and be your partner for that journey. We try to do that on as many farms as possible. There's geographies where we can do it better than others, because it does take a lot of manpower. So where we have the people, we do it. And it's most of the Corn Belt, but there may be a few pockets where we don't have full representation yet, but every year we get more and more representation as far as getting people out in the field. So we hope to have that on 90% of our customers in the very near term. Currently, we probably have it on 70% of our customers. But we go from North Dakota clear on down into Kentucky, Tennessee, even over to Texas, where we do have really good representation. It's limited on the East Coast. It's limited on the West Coast, but in that central part of the country, we're pretty good with coverage. So with that, start the journey. How do you start the journey? So let's talk about. We have a couple of different programs we talk about. Um, the soil stewardship program is kind of, people can certainly buy Holganix as just, hey, I just want to buy an application. I want to buy some product to put down the spring and see how it goes. And I'm not going to sign up for a program. I'm not going to sign up for a long-term commitment, and that's fine. And I say long-term commitment, you can get out of any of these programs anytime you want. But we do like to see it as, like I said, it's a journey. It's not something that happens with a single application one time. You'll get results, but you won't maintain and keep those results. So we do see it as a journey. And so the soil stewardship program is one where we're putting it down in the spring, we're putting it down in the fall, and we're doing it across multiple years. And the more we do it, the better it gets. And as we do that, we will help pay for ourselves right up front in fertilizer efficiency. The amount of money you'll be able to save in fertilizer should more than pay for the product. We get yield improvement, that's money back in your pocket. Long term, that soil health is, we like to say soil health is farmer wealth and part of the legacy of the operation. And then now in the geographies where we can support it, we've now got a carbon program where we're helping farmers sequester carbon, mint those credits, and actually sell them. We actually find the buyers, we sell the carbon, and we split the revenue with the farmer 60-40. Farmer gets 60, we get 40 on the carbon revenue we're able to take out of the ground. And so just to put that into perspective, this year we're on 1 million acres of measurement-based carbon sequestration. And so there are other programs out there you've probably seen where they'll pay you for practice-based carbon programs where you might get $12 an acre, $9 an acre, $20 an acre, where they're just going to take some basic estimates and say, well, if you don't till, if you don't use as much fertilizer, if you use this product, we know there's a little bit of carbon that goes in the ground, and we'll give you some credit for that. And they have companies that are paying that to help offset their carbon footprint. They're paying you to help do good practices that they believe will put carbon in the ground. The problem with those programs are they're limited because nobody's measuring that carbon on each acre. We actually go out and measure how much carbon goes in the ground down to 18 and 36 inches, depending on the market. And we then take that measurement and we can say day one, here's how much carbon, day 365, here's how much carbon. And then the delta between those two is what we can help get paid for. And the deeper the carbon is, the more valuable it is. And so because we're able to put so much carbon in the ground with our fungal networks and our plant health, we're able to spend the money to take those measurements. We actually have a third party come in and validate all the measurements. And we do it on 15-acre grids, and we do deep soil test, and we then validate that, prove that, turn it into an actual carbon credit that's got real value, because it's not just based on a practice or on an algorithm. It's actually based on an actual test, because that actually comes out of that ground at that GPS location, and year over year we can show more and more and more carbon. And the people that are interested in buying carbon credits are the people that have carbon footprints and they're trying to reduce them. People like Microsoft, people like the big transportation companies, big tech. All of those types of companies are trying to reduce their carbon footprint, and they're looking for ways to buy carbon credits to offset their carbon footprint. So if we can help the farmer be a source of that, it's another revenue source for the farm, and it's another way to add money back in your pocket. To do that, you need to be part of the soil stewardship program, and you have to be in a geography that we can support. We're on 1 million acres currently on our carbon program. We plan to expand that to about 3 million acres in the fall of 25. So there's a way for you to get on that today. Last year we shut the program down at 1 million acres. We had the ability to sell more than 1 million, but we weren't sure we could actually get out there and measure and produce more than 1 million. So we actually shut it down. So it is a program that probably will oversell and will probably have limited availability, even as we expand it. But as you get into the soil stewardship program, you kind of get your place in line and get guaranteed that you're going to have a spot when it opens up. So with that, we'll move on to the next. So we've got 2 different tiers of kind of our soil stewardship program, and I kind of jumped ahead with all the explanations I just did. We've got our base level, which is the Holganix Essentials, and that means that you're going to be committed to driving soil health. You're going to do 2 applications a year, but you maybe aren't going to be part of the carbon program, and that's okay. Not every geography can, just because we're not there yet. We're there with product, we're just not there with all the carbon testing. So with the essentials, though, you will get all the measurements that we've been talking about. Legacy is where we get the carbon benefits in addition to in both programs we do offer 0% financing. So you buy the product today, you can buy spring, you can buy fall, and you wouldn't have to pay for any of it until January of 26 for the 25 growing season. So that's a 0% financing. You don't have to pay until after you harvest and see all those results. So that's a benefit for you, in either program. And so let's move on to the next one then. And then, and this year we're doing something we're calling Essentials Plus. So even if the carb, in order to get in the next cohort of carbon, that won't even be available until fall of 24. Or, I'm sorry, fall of 25. So if you want to be in the carb program, you can wait until the fall of 25 and start then, or you could start this spring. You won't actually be enrolled in the program until fall of 25, but you could start getting the Holganix benefits in the spring. And if you do sign up in the spring, you'll get first place in the line for the carbon program when we open up the fall. So if it does oversell, you're guaranteed a spot if your geography fits. The other part of the Essentials Plus, even if you don't go on the carbon program, is we have a new tool that we're launching this year. We're using basically giving you the ag MRI data with satellite imagery that's going to have the ability for you to see certain things around vegetative quality, and it'll help give you some alerts in the fields. And this is something that costs, you could go buy it from other services for anywhere from $1 to $6 an acre. We're offering that free for those who come into the Essentials program. So in addition to the soil testing, in addition to getting in line for the carbon once it opens your market, we are also giving you the ability to have access to this ag MRI tool, and 2 farm visits and the 0% financing. So it's a great way to get started with the Holganix journey with the Essentials Plus, which is available this spring if you want to get involved. Let's go to the next one then, Ritu. So what's the requirements to be in the Essentials Plus from the grower side is we want you to apply it, starting in the spring with the Bio 800. We do it at planting or as close to planting as practical. So you can do it in furrow, you can do it over the top, you can do it as a side dress. We want it within 2 weeks of planting on either side, as close to planting as possible. We want you to be able to apply it on at least 500 acres in order to get that ag MRI and get involved with everything else. Now, if you have less than 500 acres, we still love to have you as a customer. We just can't give you all the bells and whistles. And we also need to have your boundaries and your field list in order to get on the Essentials Plus, because we need to put it in the ag MRI. We need to start getting stratification going for the carbon program when it's available. And so we need those things in order to help you with those. We also need you to look at practice recommendations in order to get the most benefit out of the product and the most benefit out of soil health. So we do want you to reduce your nitrogen. We like to say, it depends on where you're starting at, right? So everybody's farm is different. Everybody's soil is different. There's not a simple rule of thumb. We do see guys frequently go down to that, 0.7, 0.6, even 0.55 on nitrogen, compared to, units of nitrogen to bushels of corn as an example. If guys are at a pound, 1.1, 1.2, anything north a pound or north, we definitely want you to back off at least 10 or 15% year one. If you overfeed the plant, the microbes won't multiply and do their job nearly as efficiently as if we can keep the plant a little bit lean. You'll actually get better yield and better results at slightly less nitrogen than you will if you're putting it at the very high levels of that nitrogen. In most soils, we see plenty of P and K. Not every soil has plenty of P and K, but a lot do. And if we do see that P and K in the soil, it's just not available to the plant, we will be building those fungal networks that will access the P and K for you, make them available. We'll break that as an example, pull the phosphate from the rock and make it available to the plant, so we can significantly reduce P and K, frequently eliminate it. Again, every operation is different, and there's no blanket assumptions here, but we do want to see you look at the NP, NK, and look at ways that we can reduce them if you want to be part of this program. And in order to be part of the Essentials Plus, you can use Holganix in deep till every year, and we're happy to be your happy to sell you product, and we'll help you with your operation, even if you do deep till. But if you want to be part of the Essentials Plus, if you want to start getting ready for carbon sequestration, we do need you to go into minimum tillage. 6 inches or less, 4 inches or less is actually recommended. Or obviously no-till is wonderful. And we do that because, again, we're building fungal networks in the soil. Every time you go through and do tillage, you're ripping apart those fungal networks. So, you're actually working against building that healthy soil every time you do that. I understand it's necessary in certain markets, certain geographies, but if you do need to do it as little as you can, and use a fall product as an asset to help break down that stubble and stover, so you don't need to till as much. We will help you move towards less tillage. There's no doubt about it. You want to move to our next slide then, Ritu? So I think I talked about this, but we apply in the spring, we apply in the fall. Spring application, half a gallon per acre of product, along with whatever your water delivery is going to be. Typically, if it's 10 to 15 gallons, if it's a broadcast application, 5 gallons of water if it's in furrow. We can tank mix with just about anything but a fungicide. Again, we're building beneficial fungal networks. Fungicides tend to kill fungi, so we don't want to tank mix with those. If you're going to use fungicides on the fields, it's okay, but don't tank mix. And once we get the fungal networks built in the soil, you put your fungicide down topically. You will put a little bit of friction on that consortium, but you won't smoke it. But if you actually tank mix it, you will actually wipe out most of those beneficial fungi. In the fall application, we try to apply as close to harvest as possible, and a half a gallon an acre with 15 gallons of water broadcast over the top. Tremendous at breaking down that stubble and stover. There are other microbial breakdown type products. Meltdown, I think, is one is called, and Excavator's another one. Not to say there's anything wrong with those products, that use them if you want to try them. But if you look at the technical merits of those products compared to ours, again, look at what's in them. It's going to be a handful of spore-forming bacillus that they're using to help. They're going to tell you break down your stover and stubble. If you actually understand what bacteria do, they don't eat stover and stubble and convert it to humus. They poke holes in the stover and stubble. And if you have enough holes, I guess something could break down faster. But what we do is we have some of the bacteria as well, but we have the fungi, the degrading fungi that actually consume stover and stubble from the inside out, and they turn it into humus and organic matter and get back into the soil. So it's going to be a much more robust microbial breakdown than anything you would have seen with the bacterial dominant breakdown products. So here's, if you're interested in partnering with us for this Essentials Plus program, get the Agri MRI, get in line for the carbon program, get all the soil testing that we've been talking about. You can just scan this QR code, and that'll give you a link to get connected to a Holganix rep who can. They're all at training this week, so it'll be next week before you hear from anybody. But they'll be back in touch with you next week on how to start the process. We've got 2 events coming up that if you want to learn more about Holganix and how it's used, and if you have other questions, we've got a webinar on February 4th where it's going to be run by Dr. Stark. He's a PhD molecular biologist. He's the president of our ag division, does a lot of our science, and he's going to talk about how do we put life back in the soil and what does the data say. So he's going to take you through it a much more of a scientific perspective. Dave's very scientific in his presentations, but he also has a unique ability, I think, to break down complicated concepts into very simplistic ways that anybody can understand. So regardless of your background, if you're interested in learning more about this stuff and just the relationships of microbes and soil health, whether you use Holganix or not, it'll be a worthwhile webinar to attend. And then the other one we're going to do on the 18th is we're going to do a roundtable discussion to just have some more open conversation around how people are using Holganix and to build soil wealth on their operations. So we'll have some more experience sharing and more experiences from other growers. So by all means, if we can interact some more, it'd be great. In the meantime, we're going to go to our questions here. So let's go to our questions page. I can pull some up here, too. I got access to those. So one is that we've got a guy that Dan's asking us, how long does the food in quotations include in the bottle typically last? When that runs out, does the biology that's in the package go anaerobic, or does it stay aerobic, and how's it stabilized to keep the organisms alive? Super good question, Dan. I probably should have covered it so you didn't have to ask the question, but I'm glad you did. So Holganix is different than any other microbial in the amount of life we have in our packaging. It's also different in how we keep it alive. So we use cold chain supply in our distribution process. So in other words, when the consortium is below 38 degrees, they're basically dormant. They stay alive and they don't consume food or oxygen. So they stay healthy, they stay aerobic, but they stay dormant under 38 degrees. Think about yogurt. It's a similar concept. You take your yogurt in the refrigerator, it's healthy, it's good. Take your yogurt out of the refrigerator, it's not going to last very long. We're a little different than yogurt in that we can actually live outside of refrigeration, pretty comfortably for 6 weeks. Sometimes we get 8 weeks, certainly more than 4. It's springtime. Most temperatures are still pretty cold outside. So our farmers do not need refrigeration. Our distribution partners have refrigeration. So as an example, John helps us access customers in South Dakota. John Nelson does. He has refrigeration at his site that he stores the product in. So long-term storage, we use refrigeration, but once it gets to the farm, we want you to order it and use it within, let's just say 30 days, just to be super safe. And if you do that, you'll always have healthy product that's aerobic, alive, and ready to go to work for you. And we've got it. And so the food source in the Holganix actually doesn't start to get consumed until actually you put it into the soil and the microbes start to really become alive, unless you keep it out for more than 6 weeks, and then it will start to get consumed and it will go anaerobic on you, and you'll know it. The odor of the product will change immediately if it does go anaerobic. So if you're ever worried, oh geez, it's been out 8 weeks, has it been too long? All you got to do is open the lid and smell it. It'll either smell pleasant. I like to say it smells like Sam Adams and glazed donuts with a little touch of vinegar, or it'll smell like something your dog wouldn't eat and you can't even get close to it. If that happens, by the way, even if it was out for more than 8 weeks and you didn't do your job, just give us a call. We'll replace the product at no cost. We don't want anybody to have product that goes anaerobic where they have to then go out and put it out in the field. It'll still give you some benefit, but it won't give you all the benefit. And we don't want you to grade us on that product. So we will backstop it. Some weird problems happens. Maybe your farm guy just put it in the back of the barn and you forgot about it. We don't want you to waste your money. Give us a call. We'll replace that product at no cost. So we take care of it for you. Dan has a second question, which is topsoil depths before baseline and depth every 5 years. Any measurement deep in the soil? Yes, he's asking us, do we measure down as deep as 24 and 36 inches? And we do. We have lots of measurements at 36 inches, and we're showing a significant amount of carbon that goes into the ground at 18, at 36, at 24, at 12. In our carbon program, there are limits in how deep we can broadly sample because of issues around utilities and us hitting things like gas lines. So most of our carbon measurements that we do for the carbon program are going to be at that 18-inch level. But we actually do our own testing at 36 inches to prove that it's there. It helps validate our carbon program. But the broad approach is 18, simply so we don't hit gas lines and things like that. And we've got measurements that have been out over multiple years, and we see the carbon continue to build. So I think that answers Dan's question. Here we got Carl's asking a question around farmers dropping P&K applications by 40%. What's happening to the soil report after 4 to 5 years of fertilizer reduction? John, I think you could answer that question from personal experience.
Right. So I did some testing this fall where I was testing the total phosphorus in the soil, not just what's available off a Bray, Olson, or Melick test. And because there's a whole pool out there that we never pay attention to that's organically tied up with the calcium. And so what I'm finding is I still have a fairly large pool. And have I drawn that down? Some, most likely. But the soil has so much out there that the biology in typical farms can access that there's years, if not decades, because 70% of the commercial phosphorus we put on in my area with the calcium ties up and you never see it again unless you have biology or some other mechanism to break that bond between the calcium and the phosphorus. So at this point, I don't see after 5 years that I've been depleting my soils really at all. Now, everybody's different. Every farm's different. You've got to do your own research on that, but that's what I'm seeing.
Go ahead,
I'd agree with that. The co-op, competition to Holganix. I think they sell, I forget something else, Meristem or something, but they still do my soil samples, and um, my available phosphorus has dropped a little bit, but I think it's because I'm applying less, but the microbes are getting more of my tied up phosphorus available because I've seen my available or my unavailable P actually go up recently, and I think it's turning around and being converted by the microbes. I'm a farmer, not the biologist, so I'm trying to figure out what the agronomist tells me. And but I've actually seen an increase. My phosphorus, I do change. I've changed some of my phosphorus to 100% available stuff. Some of the stuff that's water soluble, but it's 100% available. And 5 pounds of this stuff is the equivalent of my 1034O and my 82555. I mean, it's the equivalent of about 20 gallons, and I'm putting out 5 pounds of it. Um, but it's 100% available right away, and my numbers are looking really good on my samples that the co-op's telling me, and they don't like the Holganix because it's the competition, I think. But they keep trying to prove me wrong, but I'm going,
Yeah.
show me the numbers. So
That's cool. And in fact, we did have a question that came up was, can you mix it with 1034O? And you certainly can. It mixes with just about anything except for a fungicide. And we had another question around, can we use Xyway in a 2x2? Not ideal. Xyway is something that does tend to have impact on microbes, and we'd rather you not use that if we can get away from it. I have customers that use it and tell me they still see benefit, but I will tell you, if we were to analyze the biology, it's actually going to work. It would be a lot less than if you didn't use the Xyway. Neither of you guys are using Xyway, is that right, John and Tim?
No.
Yeah. Um, Here's another question: is there any difference in using Holganix on corn versus beans? John, do you want to take that? What you see and how you use it?
Yeah. So I guess I've always seen a yield bump, at least a slight yield bump. I tell my folks here, a 2 to 6 on the corn. I've seen a lot higher numbers and exceptions, but as a rule of thumb, beans the same way. And I do it in furrow on both because I have my planters set up with in furrow. But I'm told that over the top, like Barrett was talking about, they really don't see any difference with that if you want to put it on with a pre. The one thing with soybeans and with corn that I've noticed is my soybean structure is changing. My nodes tend to get closer together, and I think that has something to do with the biology breaking the bonds, especially with the phosphorus and calcium, and making more calcium available as well. My stems are getting thicker, and if you ever walk your soybean fields and you pull out the beans with the thickest stems, they have the most pods. So if you can change that structure and get more nutrients flowing in that xylem and phloem on both the corn and beans, the corn stalk will typically be a thicker stalk with that more robust root under the ground. I mean, everything happens in that root zone, and so it definitely has an effect on the structure of the plant.
Yeah, that's cool, John. Beans specifically, since we're there, you want to tell us about your award that you got on beans? I know John's humble and he hates it when I do this to him, but I love to hear him tell a story, if you don't mind, John.
So here at home in 23, I'd never entered a yield contest before, and so after using Holganix for 4 years and seeing my bean structures change, I entered the bean contest, and so in 23 I won the South Dakota soybean yield contest for Group 2 no-till, 82.5 bushels, and those are the best beans I had ever raised, and we did it on less than 10 inches of rain that year during the growing season. So
yeah, that's pretty amazing. I love that story. Thanks for sharing it, John.
yeah.
We've got another question, John, that somebody actually is directing it directly at you. Say, what type of no-till system, herbicide or not, if glyphosate, are you concerned about the antibiotic effect? and its effect on applied biology. I can certainly answer it from our point of view, but he's asking you, so why don't you take it
Sure.
to the best of your
So,
ability?
you know, I've done a lot of looking into this antibiotic effect, if way you phrased it, on biology, and I'm not seeing it to the extent that some people claim that it's there. I'm not saying there isn't, and Barrett will have his answer. Some effect there. All chemicals we put on affects our biology, and with this system, with Holganix being so diverse and having such a robust community, setting that back a little bit from chemical usage, which, I mean, we've got to control our weeds, doesn't seem to have a big effect on it. Now, if you're using a product that, like Garrett was saying earlier, that has a handful of certain bacteria, they go into a system that it's almost like they become food because they don't have that community that they're used to living in, and maybe it has more effect there, but I haven't seen it with Holganix, honestly.
Yeah, thanks, John. And I will tell you that we frequently tank mix with glyphosate and other herbicides, 2,4-D, dicamba, what have you, and we know for sure that the majority of our consortium is alive and healthy in the presence of those tank mixes. I will tell you that it puts a small amount of friction on the populations, but it doesn't smoke the populations to the point where they can't do their job. And one of the things that John alluded to is because we have this entire community that we're bringing out, even if you put a little friction on it, the population that we're installing into the soil with a single application is not the population that's going to go to work on your ground. They're the pioneers that are going to get in the ground, and then they're going to start to multiply rapidly. And so it's a self-replicating active ingredient. So even if you get a little bit less because you have some glyphosate in there or what have you, you're going to more than make up for that. And when it gets in the ground, it's going to reproduce, and it's going to be a subtle ding. It's not even going to show up. So we don't have any concern around that. Do either one of you gentlemen have any measurements around? We have another question here around, we've got yield increases, but have we gained any density, weight per bushel or nutrient density? Has anybody looked at any of that? Either one of you guys?
Well, I could
Right,
probably
Tim.
say my test weight. I mean, I know it hasn't gone down. I know I was pushing 60 pounds, so it's gone up a little bit on a couple fields, but um, I certainly can say it hasn't gone down. But I'm not saying, oh, I've got. We do raise some popcorn too, and that's paid quite a bit on test weight. And typically I'm still around the 68 to 69 pounds on popcorn, which is pretty good, maybe a little bit above average, but. The guys around here usually push their popcorn pretty heavily because they get paid really well for it. But I can say that we haven't gone down anything on any of our test weights.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I've been watching it, and you get subjective. You want to think it's there, but it hasn't gone down. I would just say it's probably more consistent. Would be the word I would use.
Yeah, and I will tell you that from a per nutrient density perspective, we are starting to test that. It's still early in our studies, but we do believe we are improving nutrient density. This is anecdotal, but you see it pretty consistently in grazing ground. You'll notice that the animals will eat the treated ground first. Let's say you treat half of the pasture, and they will always go to the Holganix ground first. So they're telling you something. In addition, just again, it's a piece of an indication. It's not the whole story. But if you do a Brix analysis, a Brix test, you will always see your Brix go up consistently on a Holganix treated field. So that tells you something's happening inside that plant at a plant health, and that should be an indication that we're going to get improved nutrient density. You can taste it in things like berries and tomatoes and produce type of things that would be tabletop. So you can taste it. You get a bigger berry that tastes better. It's not just full of water. So all those things are indications saying that, yeah, we're probably moving in the right direction on all those things. Somebody's asking us here about any using it as a seed treatment. Are we seeing germination happen, like, I guess, too early, like in the bag? Is there any issues around using the product as a seed treatment? we don't. Uh, Holganix is not a seed treatment. I like to call it an in-field seed treatment because we want to put it down in the seed in the field in the soil. It is not. You can't. We have not figured out a way to take this level of biology and put it into a form that can live on on a seed. It's just too much life, and it wouldn't stay stable. At least the way that we understand it to work today. There may be technologies that come out in the future where we can do something like that, but today that's not something that we know how to do. Um, and we're getting wrapped up on these questions. I know we're probably going a little long. So certainly if anybody needs to go, I certainly understand, but we're going to go through a few more questions here. John and Tim, do you guys still have time for a few more questions?
Sure.
Um, so here we got a question around, is there any difference between using our product on irrigated versus dry land? So I know we've probably got examples of both on both of you guys, but one of you guys want to handle that?
I got no answer on that. I don't have any on irrigated grounds.
Okay.
I've got dry land, I got irrigated, and yes, there's a difference. Out here where we get maybe 10 inches of annual rainfall, um, yeah, what we usually do on our dry land out here, I mean, I'm talking the millets, some sorghums, and some wheats. Usually, our dryland guys will do a quart an acre at drilling, and then they'll come back when they're deciding about doing that late nitrogen application in the spring on their wheat, for example. Um, I basically tell them if you're gonna pull the trigger on putting some extra nitrogen out, put that other quart out. Just 22 when it was super super dry for us. Um, I had a neighbor that his cornfield was 1 bushel an acre, and they made him harvest it for insurance purposes. Um, Nothing grew. I wouldn't recommend putting that second cord out there just because save a little bit of money when you know everything's dying. That's the only difference as far as that goes. You're still getting the benefit, some benefit with a cord out there, yet with it being dry land out in our environment, I mean, most guys plan on an insurance check every other year. So that's for the Great American Desert anyway. That's where we go with it is to cut back a little bit, but still put something at planting because you will see that in the root system. But when it comes to super dry like we had in 22, don't put that second cord out because you're most likely going to get an insurance check. I hate to say it that way, but
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
life.
we've gotten.
That's life out in western Nebraska, right?
Hmm.
Um, all right. So we got a question here around what do you think of deep subsoiling as a starting point to get oxygen into the lower levels for biology to live on? Injecting 800 behind the shank worthwhile? Um, I don't think either one of you guys have done anything like this, but
No.
no experience, right? So we typically just put it in furrow, put it over the top. We're putting down an active ingredient that is a self-replicating active ingredient. It's going to multiply. The microbes are going to naturally start to go down into the soil, into the levels where they want to be. We don't have any experience in putting it down as deep as you're suggesting. There may be some benefits, but frankly, the most benefit that we see is when it's in association with the seed and the living root. And so as that root's developing, the microbes are building colonies around that root. And as the root continues to go deeper, those colonies go deeper. We do see evidence of our fungal populations down at 6 and 8 feet after using the product for a couple of years. So we have done, analysis down to that depth, but I wouldn't start at that depth. I'd start at the living root area. Do you have any example of areas where you've close to 365-day cover on the soil with rotations or service crops? Is there any added benefit there? Are you seeing anything in your experience, John? Are you using it in that fashion?
Well, I guess I'm trying to do some cover crops, and that's part of the reason why I'm introducing wheat back in, especially winter wheat. Um, if that's what you're getting to in your question, to have that root that's alive, even though it's dormant right now for us, it's still alive. The biology is there. I'm finding better microbial readings where I have covers. I've tried stripping, planting soybeans into standing wheat. That yield contest that I won, that went into standing winter wheat, and I didn't spray it off till boot. And I've been trying, experimenting with planting corn in planting 30-inch rows of winter wheat in the fall, and then splitting that row and planting corn into that, to keep a growing root, even though they're 30 inches apart, keeping something alive in the soil, and then spraying that off as the corn comes up. And again, I see the Holganix reacting to that living root and giving me better biology numbers.
Yeah, and that's totally on par. Anytime we got living roots, you're going to have more biology. It's going to continue to grow faster and more abundant. So, if we can keep that in the ground, great. If we can't, we can still make progress and still keep building the life in the soil. So both ways work, but the more we can have that living root there in association with those microbes, the better everybody's going to be. Here's another question and this will be our last question. Asking around baseline geology testing. Have we done anything around knowing that what's actually in the soil that biology can release, including trace elements beyond the usual 12 or so on the usual nutrient tests? Have you done anything, either one of you gentlemen done anything to see some of your trace elements and the impact there? And
I guess I haven't measured my trace elements other than through soil testing, and I can't give a good answer to that.
Yeah, that's fine, John. And Tim, anything different?
I mean, yeah, the zinc, manganese, boron, some of those, but I usually apply something in furrow with that to keep everything boosted. So I wouldn't say, oh yeah, the Holganix did that, because I have no way of proving it.
Yeah, it's all good. And we do see that Holganix has an impact on availability of lots of nutrients, certainly well beyond the big ones that we all talk about. If you want to get deeper into that question, I would suggest that you show up to the one with Dave Stark that's coming up. Dave is the one that does all of our in-depth studies, and so he has some specific experience on this that he can speak to. I can just speak to it broadly, but I didn't want to miss that question because it was about the last question we had. So thank you very much for the robust dialogue that we had here. For the audience that took the time to type in those questions, it was definitely a good set of questions. I really appreciate it. And thank you, John and Tim, for being great customers and volunteering your time today to share your experience with other growers. And thank you, everybody, for giving us a piece of your day. I know everybody's busy and it's plenty to do. The fact that you took a little bit of time out to listen to us talk about Holganix, how we can help you in your journey of building soil health and profitability on your operation, we really appreciate it. So if we can do anything more for you, we're here for you. We'd love to engage. We'd love to be your partner. We see ourselves as, we want to be champions of our customers to help them make more money on their farms, help them build more wealth through soil health, and help be more efficient operations, regardless of what commodity prices are doing. We want to help you not just survive in 25, but thrive. And, that's what we're all about. So I really appreciate that. If there's anything we can do, Ritu, you want to just go back to that QR code just so they can have that as a final. There you go. Hit that QR code, and that'll get you to a link that'll get you at one of our soil specialists to get a hold of you and start talking to you about how we might be able to interact with you on your operation. And I really appreciate everybody's time, and hope you have a great day and a great week. And hopefully you're not too cold out there. I know most of the country's pretty doggone cold right now. I know I am, but hopefully it warms up soon. And thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks a bunch, Barrett.
Thank you.
Thank you.